So 3 weeks ago, I said over on my Twitter that I was going to give my thoughts about the recent Fantastic Four movie. And today we are going to do just that, starting off with the basic story of the movie. So the basic idea of the movie was that it took place 4 years after the Fantastic Four had first gotten their powers and had made a name for themselves, due in part to Ben Grimm not being able to hide himself, unlike the other three. And the main thing they have to deal with, apart from a child uh, that's going to be born to Sue Storm, is Galactus and the Chrome Surfer. Yeah, whatever, Silver Surfer. But if you've seen the movie, you'll understand why I said that. And how to deal with Galactus before his machine decides to devour Earth and ultimately, killing everybody. So, yeah, let's go into the characters themselves. So we'll get to the easier ones to explain in terms of my thoughts and everything. And then we'll get to the ones where it's like, why did they really mess them up? Beginning with Franklin Richards. So Franklin Richards, in Marvel Comics, is either one of the strongest characters they have in their lineup or one of the weakest ones they have in their lineup. In this one, considering Franklin is an infant, of course he's going to be one of the weakest ones, which makes sense. So it really is, I really don't find any fault in how they wrote Franklin in this movie. Next up is Sue Storm. Now, there is one thing that I did not like about this adaptation of Sue, and that was at the beginning, she had to push Johnny out into the spotlight because, if I recall correctly, one of her lines was, "Hey, this is Johnny Storm, my baby brother. Hey, ladies, he's single and available, and why?" But that's going to be tied into the one for Johnny too, but I just didn't like them having her say that. They could have done without that. Regardless, besides like some lines here and there in the scene with the mob, I will defend that one kinda because it's a comic book movie. You'll have some comic book-esque scenes where it kind of feels like it would be not that way in real life, but whatever. So yeah. Other than that, not too bad. Not too bad. Next up, Silver Surfer. The thing is, with the Silver Surfer, yes, I'm fully aware the Silver Surfer is for like 95+% of the multiverse in the comics and everything else. Silver Surfer had always been portrayed as a male. There is one version of Silver Surfer that is female in the comics, and I will cover that comic in, I think, 3 or so weeks. No exact date as to when I will do it, but I plan on covering that one comic in the near future. This also concerns the next character too. So I'm not actually defending their choice of female Silver Surfer. I'm just saying there was one. So there's that. Besides that, it feels more like they wrote the character to be a possible love interest for Johnny Storm. So, yeah. Next up, Galactus. He was there. He took a stroll downtown. He swatted at the Fantastic Four like there were bugs, and he played with Mr. Fantastic like he was a Stretch Armstrong doll. Yeah, I know. He does do a lot of stuff in the comics, and there is the one issue that I'm going to be doing, which covers a variation of Galactus that has a power. Uh, so that's all I gotta say about that. It's just, it looks good. Execution was kind of rough, so whatever. Now for the main three, besides Sue Storm. Johnny Storm. He was too reserved. Like, what the fuck did they make? Why did they decide to go, let's have two Reed Richards, but have the other one not be named Reed Richards? Now, I know that Johnny Storm is a complex character, but to have that one part of him where women, outside of maybe one scene, fall for him, it's just there. Other than like him doing his usual Human Torch stuff, him as how he was in the him as how he was in the 2005 movie with Chris Evans, it just seems like a lesser version overall. So, just gonna point that out. Mr. Fantastic, also known as Pedro Pascal, pretending to be Mr. Fantastic. And I'm not blaming Pedro Pascal for that. I'm honestly blaming the voice director behind the scenes on that one, because they even had an interview with Pedro Pascal, and he straight up stated he would go into a 60s themed accent and they would tell him no. So, what the fuck? They should have just let him go with the goofiness. It's a movie in the 60s. Let them be goofy. Whatever. It's just, other than that, it was fine. He was smart, but like, it's Pedro Pascal being smart. Yay. Now for the last one of the four. Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. Now, overall, Ben Grimm, between this one and the 2005 one, I will never watch the 2015 one. For the most part, he was portrayed rather well. However, early on, they had a scene where they had him on Yancey Street, and what I saw during that scene took me out of the immersion of rock guy buying cookies and talking to a local school teacher, because It felt like they needed to sit on the editing process for his green screen stuff just a little bit longer, maybe a week or so, just to make it look better. Now, how many scenes of this didn't look great? I don't remember. There weren't too many, but like when you see that and you notice it on the first viewing, nonetheless, it just takes you out of the immersion of what I had just stated. And the fact that he was growing a beard when none of the comics showed him do that, apart from like when Reed Richards went forwards in time, just seems weird. A very weird choice, but whatever. Regardless, it's not the worst characterization of him, apart from like, oh right, they got rid of scenes with him. Oh boy. And last but not least, Dr. Victor Von Doom. He shows up for a whole whopping 10 seconds. They don't show his face, and he talks to Franklin Richards. That's it. So I don't have much to say. Oh man. Yeah. So with that out of the way, anything else I wanted to say? Oh yes. So the fault with the story. Alright, now for the story. Now, not every idea that gets put down on paper not only is a good idea, but gets executed rather well, and this is definitely one of those kinds of things where the idea might sound well, but the execution is just absolute garbage. Starting with the beginning. Now, if it were any other, comic book character that has had any, vast amount of exposure outside of the comics, like, for example, Spider-Man, which I still say that they should have at least mentioned the biting or what happened that led up to his powers. Whatever. You really should at least show it, even if it was like corrupted footage. For them to not even have a line mentioning that there was either no footage, or the footage was destroyed, or the footage was too corrupted to even be able to show, just is stupid. And then early on, with the movie's lifespan in theaters, it had been found out that they had taken footage of a whole character and pitched it. Which is stupid regardless of the fact that they had shown the character in the post-credit scene. The speedrun of the first 4 years was a choice of all time. And honestly, they should have made this a 2-movie idea instead of just speedrunning into the Galactus part. But it was a choice of all time. Yay. And then you get to the beginning where they... I don't know. It just... Now, when concerning Franklin Richards in terms of them speedrunning to a Galactus story, it just doesn't feel like they should have. regardless of the fact that a lot of people do know that Franklin Richards was their first kid and then Valeria was their second kid. It's just they should have gone with a two movie thing, as I said just a little while ago. I think they could have done a Mole Man movie, which they did have Mole Man in the movie. They did allude to them beating Mole Man. But they should have had a Mole Man movie first, and then they have a Galactus one, which would have built up tension, though considering the box office sales, I think might have derailed any sort of idea for that. Just a guess. I don't have like statements, but I'm guessing here. So that's what it feels like, that they were just streamlining straight into a Galactus story. And then the powers shown off were kind of there. And the one that had his powers used the least was Reed, outside of him being smart. Oh joy. And then we get to the Chrome Surfer, and like I said before, there is going to be a video that I'll be doing 3 weeks from now that I'll explain the comic. I'll do a reading of the comic, actually. Regardless, they really should have just went with the more recognizable one instead of trying to push a relationship for Johnny Storm. It just was so stupid. I did like the fact that of what Galactus looked like. He didn't do much, but whatever. The third act with Galactus on Earth, walking downtown, they should have done more with that. It was a know-nothing kind of scenario. It felt like I was just rewatching the fight scene from Civil War towards the end. Just with an even taller Ant-Man. Whoops. Yeah, it's just so bad. And I do agree that it was only worth the one watch. I have no interest in buying it on disc. It's been so long since I even thought about buying a version of, or not a version, buying any of the Marvel live action movies on disc. It's just so sad. Which reminds me, I do need to look into when they have the Superman movie on disc. Regardless, it's just a movie that exists, and not far too many, people who know the info from the comics and other sources of media praise it too well. So, that's most of what I have to say. There was that post-credit scene with Doctor Doom, and it exists. It was okay. But, yeah, there's not much to say. By the way, there was a deleted scene with the Thing on a dating show, which they should have used for Johnny Storm and had in the movie. But with that out of the way, that's going to do it for me today. I don't know. It was fine. It wasn't abhorred. It didn't make me go, well, I just saw enough what I need to see. I'm going to leave. But next week, we will be covering DC versus Sonic the Hedgehog, issue number 5. And until next time, everybody, goodbye.
One more thing.
There's one last thing I wanted to talk about, which I forgot to mention until, after the fact. The scene right before the Chrome Surfer shows up, Reed Richards had talked about their villains being monitored, and that just sounds really bad. It makes it seem like they had turned the entire area into a police state. And honestly, I don't know what they were trying to do with this Reed Richards. Either having him effectively be a version of the Reed Richards that lobotomized every version of Doctor Doom that was in the multiverse, or I don't know, the beginning workings of the Maker. Now I will leave okay, so I will use the comic issue for the first one, but the Maker is just a solo character from the original Ultimate Universe who is held up in Bubble City right now in the new Ultimate Universe. So, joy. But yeah, that's gonna actually be it for today's video. Next week we'll be covering issue number 5 of DC and Sonic the Hedgehog. So, till next time, everybody. For real this time. Goodbye.